Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at an extremely underrated update in the Season 15 balance patch, and that is Disarming Voice on Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is a charm user that previously only had nuke charge moves, so getting Disarming Voice is a big upgrade, as Wigglytuff now has a charge move it can get to faster than it previously could before. I tested out Wigglytuff with a backline of Quagsire and Swampert and went on an 11-game win streak before unfortunately losing to lag. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Disarming Voice Wigglytuff in action in the Great League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a great lead Wigglytuff into Sableye, and my opponent is staying in this matchup. Something that I was noticing is a ton of teams are ABA weak to Wigglytuff at the moment, whether it's MEDICHAM in the lead with Sableye in the back, or vice versa. In comes Bastiodon, I pivot into Quagsire, and now we see the MEDICHAM, and at this point, I already have this game won. My opponent was hoping that I'd just stay in with the Wigglytuff, but all I have to do is pivot into one of my two Mud Boys, bait out that MEDICHAM, and now I have Wigglytuff for the MEDICHAM, and Swampert that will absolutely crush that Bastiodon in the endgame. They fire off the Psychic with the MEDICHAM. We do not see the defense drop. Quagsire able to hang on with a sliver of HP and make the last second Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb gets them low. MEDICHAM fires off a charge move on 1 HP. I'm just going to let this go and instead choose to get energy on Swampert. Even down a shield, Swampert is going to comfortably beat Bastiodon here. Opponent at this point doesn't have a win con, but they're going to try and play it out. They're firing off a charge move here, but everything is resisted. Stone Edge not going to do a lot. My Swampert is just overloaded with energy here. Firing off a Hydro Cannon, my opponent will commit the shield. I'm going to farm up 4 more mud shots and go for another Hydro. My opponent still trying to get the win here, but that's just not going to be possible. And you know what? Let's have a little fun with it. I want to finish the game with Wigglytuff. Hydro Cannon gets them low, and we get the snipe with the Disarming Voice from Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is a Bastiodon counter confirmed, and that is a good game. We see same leads in the next match, Wigglytuff into Sableye, let's go. Opponent save switches into a MEDICHAM, and just like the last opponent, they are absolutely core broken by Wigglytuff. I am more than happy to shield the Psychic here, as this way I can stay with quite a lot of HP and get rid of that Sableye later in the match. Their final Pokemon is revealed to be a Powder Snow Shadow Alolan Ninetales. I farm up to the Stone Edge here, I'm baiting with a Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb will be shielded by my opponent. My opponent continues to overfarm, and I'm more than happy to go for the Mud Bomb here. This will not KO, but at this point, all I really need is chip damage. They're firing off a charge move, I'm not going to shield. I've already gotten some chip and a shield. They go for the Weather Ball, and they're going for Weather Ball number 2. That is perfectly fine by me. That Weather Ball is going to connect. I can now send in the Swampert to absorb the energy, and just switch into the Wigglytuff when they send in the Sableye. In comes the Swampert, opponent is going to fire off the Weather Ball, and now that I've tanked the energy, it is Wigglytuff time. Wigglytuff charms down the A9, all that's left is the Sableye, and situations like these are where having the cheap charge move of Disarming Voice is quite nice. I'm able to grab a shield from the Sableye and make it to another Disarming Voice. Opponent top lefts as I reach the charge move, and that's game over. We see a tough lead in the next match, Wigglytuff into Shadow Golbat. This is a terrible matchup, so I will immediately save switch into Quagsire and see what my opponent has in the back, and my opponent sends in Jellicent. So by no means a hard counter to a Mud Boy, so maybe I can play for switch or shields here. Quagsire is extremely spammy thanks to adding Mud Bomb this season, so let's see what Quagsire can do. I'm firing off Mud Bomb number 2. Opponent is going to no-shield that one as well. They have a lot of energy here on the Jellicent. Jellicent firing off a charge move. I tank whatever they throw. They go for the Surf, and they're going for Surf number 2. I do have a very high rank Quagsire, meaning I can tank 2 Surfs here and still be able to make another Mud Bomb. So I'm firing off the Mud Bomb here. This will KO unless my opponent commits the shield. Mud Bomb gets the shield. Quagsire gets another Mud Bomb. New mechanic actually works. Mud Bomb gets the second shield, and now I'm in a terrific situation. I can just charm down with the Wigglytuff, tank whatever they throw, no problem, and it's all up to 2 shield Swampert in the back, and my opponent's final Pokemon is revealed to be MEDICHAM. MEDICHAM is basically ubiquitous at this point. It's on almost every single team. That's part of why I did really like running this team, because this team has nothing weak to MEDICHAM on it, and Wigglytuff, of course, does extremely well. So here, I'm going to look to farm up and fire off the Hydro Cannon on the CMP tie as MEDICHAM makes their second charge move. That will KO. In comes the Shadow Golbat, and I'm firing off the Hydro Cannon right away. Hydro Cannon is going to be doing a lot of damage to the Shadow Golbat, farming up with the Swampert. Here, I could have just shielded and won, but I'm trying to feature Wigglytuff. So let's get the resisted Charm down, farm down with the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is going to shield up the Poison Fang here. Golbat is going to try and make it to another move, but Wigglytuff says no, charms down the Poison type, and secures the win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Wigglytuff into Sableye, and Wigglytuff is eating yet again. Opponent safe switches into Registeel, and I have a great response available in Quagsire. Quagsire can spam out Mud Bombs here, significantly outpacing the Registeel, and 2 Mud Bombs will KO, and I can easily get there before they make a second Focus Blast. They go for Focus Blast number 1, Quagsire, able to tank that no problem, and now I'm going to overfarm till just before their next Focus Blast and fire off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb will be lethal. Registeel gets KO'd. Opponent can send back in the Sableye here. I'm farming up and going for the Mud Bomb just before they make it to the foul play. Mud Bomb going to deal some solid chip damage. Sableye looks for the farm down, and Quagsire makes the Stone Edge. This will KO if they no shield, which they do. In the back, they have Shadow, Alolan Sandslash, and you know what? I have a Swampert in the back, but let's see what Wigglytuff can do here, because Wigglytuff is double resisting the fast move of Shadow Claw, whereas the Charms are only single resisted. They're firing off an Ice Punch here. I'm able to tank that no problem, and it looks like I can even tank a second Ice Punch as well. My opponent is going to be able to grab my first shield, and I'm not even throwing a charge move. I'm just going for the oppressive Charm down here. They're firing off another Ice Punch. I will commit the final shield. Come on, Wigglytuff. KO the Steel type. Opponent makes the last second move. Is this going to KO the Wigglytuff? It will not. Wigglytuff charms down the Shadow Ace-Slash as the win streak continues. We see a neutral lead in the next match, Wigglytuff into Dunsparce. I throw 1 Charm, safe switch into Quagsire, and my opponent responds with a Knockdown. This is by no means a hard counter to a Quagsire safe switch, so I should be able to fight for either switch advantage or shield advantage. And there we go, opponent is going to commit the first shield of the match on the Stone Edge. They're firing off a Sky Attack. I'm able to tank that no problem, and I'm just looking to massively overfarm. They make another Sky Attack. That's fine by me. I'm going to commit the shield. I'm going to try and play this to where I give up 1 shield, but I can take both of theirs. I'm firing off the Stone Edge. This is definitely going to hurt. Opponent is going to let that through. Quagsire farming up, winning CMP over the Knockdown, and now my opponent is in a tough spot. They commit the final shield, and I'm just going to let the Quagsire go. I'm fine with giving up switch. They undercharge the Sky Attack, looking for the farm down. I'm not going to let that happen. I send in the Swampert. They try and go for a catch onto Medicham. Importantly, the Knockdown is short of a charge move there. I fire off the Hydro into the Medicham. My goal is I want to try and leave with a Hydro Cannon loaded so they can't really send in the Knockdown as they're just going to lose that energy. So I'm looking to massively overfarm here. Go for the Hydro Cannon. This is going to get rid of the Medicham, and they're going to have to send back in the Dunsparce. Opponent sends in the Dunsparce, farming up with the Swampert. Oh no, I've made a huge mistake. I forgot they had 2 rollouts residual instead of 1, and I lose a massive amount of energy, and now the win streak is in jeopardy because of that massive mistake. They're firing off a drill run from the Dunsparce. Wigglytuff does have some nice bulk to it. I'm able to absorb that damage. I continue to farm with the Wigglytuff. Now I can threaten to charm down, so my opponent may look to try and snipe with the Knockdown. I'm farming up. In comes the Knockdown, and I fire off the Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice is going to be getting rid of the Knockdown, denying that energy. In comes the Dunsparce, and we get the catch onto the Quagsire. So despite the massive mistake in the mid-game, we make a catch. Mud shot down with the Quagsire, and that's a good game. We see a great lead in the next match, Wigglytuff into Medicham. Opponent safe switches into Lantern. Here, I probably should have sent in Quagsire, as Quagsire is a lot more consistent, but I end up going into Swampert. Now, Swampert can do quite well versus Spark Lantern, but if you have an Earthquake shielded, then the opponent can actually make a play to try and go for switch advantage. I'm going to full send the Earthquake here. Opponent does commit the shield, and now they can control switch advantage in this match. So I say, you know what, may as well tank this and just try and make it to another Quake. My opponent is content with giving up both shields in exchange for switch advantage, and they're looking to leave with energy. So I fire off the Earthquake, get the final shield. If I'm losing switch, I may as well save the Swampert for potential catch later and aggressively switch into Quagsire. My opponent fires off the Surf with the Lantern. In comes Medicham. Medicham down 2 shields, but no longer aligned against the Wigglytuff. I fire off a Mud Bomb into the Medicham. Does not do a ton of damage, but at this point, I'm just looking for chip. Going for Mud Bomb number 2. Suddenly, the Medicham is below half health. Medicham is going to be forced to throw here, as Quagsire would make another Mud Bomb. They fire off the charge move. It's Dynamic Punch, so they are probably running Dynamic Punch and Psychic. Both of those charge moves do quite a lot of damage to Wigglytuff, so I will commit the shield. Medicham does go for Dynamic Punch number 2, and they do not reveal the final Pokemon, as instead, they're just going to bring back in Lantern. Lantern fires off a Surf into the Wigglytuff. In the back, opponent is running Dunsparce. Dunsparce will fire off a Drill Run and grab the final shield from the Wigglytuff, and it looks like I need a catch to win this game. I'm going to go for the Disarming Voice here. Disarming Voice will deal some solid chip damage onto the Dunsparce, farm up 2 more charms, switch, and get the catch onto the low HP Swampert, and with that, we should have the game won. As now, I can fully charm down. I'm going to get to leave with the Disarming Voice loaded, and this will come very close to getting rid of the Lantern. Disarming Voice gets the Lantern low. Lantern does not get to the charge move, and Wigglytuff farms down. We see same leads again in the next match, Wigglytuff into Medicham. The 2 most common leads right now that I'm seeing in my specific elo range are going to be the Sableye and the Medicham, and Wigglytuff just absolutely feasts on both of them. Medicham goes for the Ice Punch, looking for Ice Punch number 2, but Wigglytuff gets the farm down. In comes Noctowl. I'm now firing off the Ice Beam here. I believe the first time I've actually used Ice Beam in this video. That's going to deal quite a lot of damage. Send in the Swampert, and Swampert is going to win CMP over the Noctowl. Noctowl did overfarm by 1, so this may be a CMP tied to a Shadow Ball. I'm going to no shield. Whether it's the Shadow Ball or not, I tank both moves. It is going to be the Shadow Ball, and in the back, they have a Charm Alolan Ninetales. So my opponent wasn't necessarily ABA weak to the Wigglytuff. They were just trying to get shield advantage, but as we see, we're in a very comfortable position nevertheless. As I can send in the Quagsire. Quagsire tanks the Weather Ball quite comfortably, and I should be able to go for the Stone Edge to get rid of the Ninetales. Here, I'm going to intentionally throw on a bit of uncomfortable timing, just because I'm expecting the Stone Edge to KO, and the Charm won't register, but as we see, I underestimate the damage from Wigglytuff, and they make it to a last second charge move. So definitely not the best play from me, but the good news is we still get the farm down and leave with a Stone Edge to KO the Noctowl. We farm down the Ninetales, and that's game over. We've got a neutral lead in the final match, Wigglytuff into Lantern. I have 2 better responses in the back, so I am going to be throwing 1 charm, save switching into Quagsire. My opponent is going to respond with Sableye. So it looks like my opponent is pretty weak to the Wigglytuff in the back. Let's see if I can potentially make a play for switch advantage. I'm able to make it to the back-to-back Mud Bombs here. If this lands, I can take switch. My opponent is going to commit the shield. I'm going to let this through. If my opponent goes for the foul play, this is not going to KO, and they do go for the foul play, but they go for foul play number 2, and I decide, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I got shield advantage, and now I'm going to send back in the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff gets the easy charm down. Back in comes the Lantern. I send in Swampert. In the back is Trevenant. Oh my goodness, opponent read the team and they expected that I was trying to bait out the Trevenant, so they saved the Trevenant for the final Mon, which is Swampert. But my opponent overfarms too much here, and now Swampert makes another Hydro, forces a shield, and with a 2-0 shield advantage, things are suddenly looking better for me. My opponent could have thrown the Seed Bomb before I made the second Hydro, and I would have had to commit a shield there, whereas now with the 2-0 shield advantage, things are looking quite nice for Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is going to get the charm down. All that's left is the Lantern. Lantern does have a lot of energy, so I will need both these shields on the Wigglytuff to have a chance to win. I'm firing off Disarming Voice here. Disarming Voice will deal some chip damage onto the Lantern. I'm going to need to make it to another Disarming Voice here. Wigglytuff gets outpaced. Do they have back-to-back here? That's the question. I commit the shield on the Surf. They do not. Wigglytuff makes Disarming Voice number 2. That's going to be taking out the Lantern, and that is a good game. All in all, this team ended up working out quite nicely for me. As I mentioned, won 11 games in a row and then unfortunately did lose the next one when I lagged. But I would say if I tried it again in the future, I might substitute the Swampert closer for a Medicham instead. That way the team is not triple weak to a Venusaur or a Victreebel, because those Pokemon aren't run as frequently at the moment, but if they do make a resurgence, then those Pokemon would be an absolute nightmare for this team to handle. Disarming Voice is a really nice addition to Wigglytuff's moveset. Allowing a Charmer to get to its charge moves faster is always going to be an upgrade, and definitely does elevate Wigglytuff among the Great League Charmers as a pretty nice anti-meta pick that especially can be useful when people are getting way too over-reliant on Sableye and Medicham. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.